example, agricultural economy and develop it and invest in it, it will lead to industrialization, because by developing agriculture, by investing in it, by constructing silos, constructing this, you will cause developing of processing industry, for example, oil production, or sunflower oil, or bread, or whatever, by actually pasta.
Yeah.
Okay? So by developing raw materials, you will cause develop and investing in it, of course, not just utilizing credit, but investing in it, you will cause industrialization in this way. So, for example, if Ecuador develop agriculture and banana production, but also invest in I don't know, like banana juice or whatever, jam.
Baby food. There's also banana puree in baby food. Yeah.
Does it work?
Well, I think if transportation is cheap, it won't happen like that. The tin in Bolivia was taken to Liverpool to be melted for 150 years.
So we have the same problem in Ukraine. We export wood, but we could produce furniture. Why are we exporting wood to Turkey and then import furniture from Turkey?
Absolutely.
We can produce it on our own.
That's right. And that has never happened without some kind of protection. Sometimes the protection has been involuntary, like the United States. The United States, we had fantastic theories from Mr. Hamilton, but industrialization only really started with the Napoleonic War, where there was a continental blockade. There was a blockade of US trade. Their trade fell by more than 90%, and they had to start producing themselves. The same thing happened in South Africa with the apartheid. Because they had apartheid, they were boycotted, and they could develop. So, but there's a very important mechanism here, which is wages. And the Australians had a very good argument here. They had some 1920s. They had a couple of reports, the Vernon report and another industrial report. And they said, well, we should really only produce wool. But if we produce wool, we will start having sheep in areas which is less productive than others. And the price of wool in the world market is not going to change, so our wages will go down. So the Australian argument was that in order for our wages not to follow into diminishing returns, we need a manufacturing sector that will create a relatively high wage. And the existence of the manufacturing sector will prevent us from going into diminishing returns. Yeah. And I think this is a key thing. Why is agriculture in Africa so primitive? Well, because labor is free. Right?
Yeah, but they don't want war.
Well, I'm not so sure. I think once you get into the spirit of improving things, it's I've been the main speaker to the Industrial Association of Zimbabwe, with 170 industrialists, of which 3 were white, and they were very brilliant group of people. So, but the fact that if you have a manufacturing sector, you will also have the technological. First of all, you will change the wage level, because when people can find higher wages in the city, that will force up the wages in manufacturing. And also, the proximity to manufacturing will bring the technical skills that are needed for agriculture. Mr. Ford, after a while, he started building tractors, right? But it's difficult to employ, why don't they employ more tractors in Africa? Well, first of all, because capital is so expensive, just like here. And second of all, because labor is so cheap. And third, they don't have the skills. So it's this was something that was discovered only around 1750. And it was David Hume, the English philosopher, who has a wonderful phrase that the best way to help agriculture is to help manufacturing. You know, Hume, who was a kind of conservative philosopher. So the fact that these, you know, nobody is against agriculture. I think what we're only saying that in order to improve agriculture, you need an industrial sector for the wages, for the skills, everything. So this synergy is important. Well, we're going to talk more about the financial sector tomorrow, but this is so better. There are two spheres, right? Here is the productive spheres, and here is the capital. Here is the money, and here is what you can buy for the money. And you have to separate these things well. And neoclassical economics doesn't. And after Ricardo, they didn't really distinguish between the financial side and the real side. And as Keynes would have said, you know, the financial sector is a bridge in time. That if you want to build a house, you want to build a factory, you go to the financial economy and you get money for the next 50 years to build a factory or to build a house, 30 years or whatever it lasts. Right? So here is all kinds of production of goods and services, which somebody call the Güterwelt, the world of goods and services. And here is what he calls the financial economy, and he calls them Rechenfähige, which is like accounting units. You know, it's not more mysterious than that. Money is just accounting units. Don't, you know, there's nothing mythical about it. And the post-Keynesians, building on that, they create good solutions. You know, I have a colleague in Tallinn, an American whose name is Jan Kregel, and Jan Kregel was the one who wrote the so-called Stiglitz report on the financial crisis. But Jan Kregel was a consultant to the Cuban government. And Cuba had two currencies. They had a peso, which was completely devalued. You only use it on the market to buy vegetables and things like that, or books. And then they had the US dollar. But they had too few US dollars, because normally they had more of a purchasing power abroad, so the tourists were taking them, but didn't have enough dollars. And Mr. Kregel says, well, we'll solve this. This is the way to solve it. The Cuban central bank should start printing notes saying, we, the Central Bank of Cuba, promise to pay against this note $10, $50 or whatever. So he actually made the Cuban government, he put the Cuban government in the position of printing dollars, which of course only would circulate in Cuba. But the point is that if they didn't exaggerate this, if they didn't print so much that it was inflation, this is just like a letter of credit. You know, I promised, I owe you, as the Americans say. You know, we promised to pay a promissory note. So, if you have this more pragmatic view, the Keynesian view, which also comes from Schumpeter, that these are really only accounting units, then it's possible. It would be possible also in the Ukraine to have several currencies. Now, this is just I don't know if it would work here. It probably works better in Cuba because the economy has been so closed. But an example of how creative you can be if you have a non-ideological relationship to money. So, in good periods, these are in balance. They live in symbiosis, right? But in bad times, which we talk about tomorrow, the right-hand side becomes like it grows too fast, and it becomes like a parasite. You know, this is what we're seeing in Greece right now, that the financial economy actually shrinks the real economy. But we'll get back to that. And we have to separate good greed from bad greed. I think this is very important. And he's another Italian economist, Pietro Verri, same year, 1771, another Italian economist. The private interest of each individual, when it coincides with the public interest, is always the safest guarantor of public happiness. Okay. So Adam Smith said, it's not by the goodness of the baker that we get our daily bread. We get our daily bread because the baker is greedy, he wants to make money. But as long as he makes money by baking bread for us, that's fine. But what happened with neoliberal economics, that they took away that middle of the phrase in italics. The private interest of each individual is always the safest guarantor for public happiness. And then you get Gordon Gekko, right? Then you get people who actually make money from against the public interest. I'll give you an example. The French Revolution was a product of at least 15 years of shortage of bread in Paris. And these were the physiocrats. They had the theory that the market would solve everything. But for a long time, it was more profitable to take money out of to take grain out of Paris and wait for prices to rise. So there was much more money to be made from not baking bread than from baking bread, right? And this is it doesn't coincide with the public interest. And there was one important economist, Mr. Necker, who was an anti-physiocrat. And actually, the French Revolution broke out when news reached Paris that Mr. Necker had lost his job as a Minister of Finance. So the whole French Revolution was about speculation. And it was about economic theory. Right. The physiocrats, who are now kind of the grandfathers of neoclassical economics, they lost out. And I think this is what we have to bring back. But it cannot be brought back in neoclassical economics, because in neoclassical economics there is no such thing as public interest. It's a theory only based on individuals. As Margaret Thatcher said, when she said there is no such thing as society, she was just restating an assumption on neoclassical economics. So this is the problem, that neoclassical economics is there is no state in there. There is no society, right? And therefore they don't see when capitalism comes in conflict with society, like in the French Revolution. We get into these whirlwinds of financial crisis. We don't have time to talk much about energy, but if you use Mr. Serra and for the energy crisis and say diminishing and increasing returns, since the Industrial Revolution, the world has lived on extracting energy, coal, gas, oil. Extraction is always subject to diminishing returns. But if we can, and there is reason to be pessimistic, but if we take Serra's view, can we produce energy without diminishing returns? Yes, if we harvest energy. Harvesting is by harvesting energy. If you harvest the wind, there is not less wind. You just harvest it and it comes back. And similar thing here. You see, these are this is a learning curve of cost reductions for solar panels. You see, here is an index, 100, and it goes down to 0.1. And you see that from 1978 till this is the last line of 2011, you see that the costs going down fantastically. Right? And this, we'll get back to this when we talk about the Industrial Revolution. But you see, the kind of cumulative learning is what is what makes things possible. And by subsidizing for a while, if you subsidize solar energy up here until it gets profitable, that's good business. Right? But it could be too much for a company to do. But Germany has done a good job in what they call the Energiewende, the change in energy. So there is a trench war out there between the technology optimists and the technology pessimists, right? And I'm trying to say what we have to do is to see where can we be optimistic? Well, we can be optimistic in harvesting energy. Right? If we continue to extract energy, it gets will not be able to do it. So this is a very important. This is a very important curve because it shows the typical. It shows the way economic growth takes place. This is the mechanization. This is the first industrial revolution. The mechanization of cotton spinning. So you see here, in a few years in the late 1700s, the cotton spinning in England, the productivity increase was more than 25% a year. Fantastic productivity. And then it comes down to the normal and it flattens out. What we think of as economic development is really a sequence of productivity explosions like that. In the early 1900s, it was Henry Ford. He had a similar productivity improvement. And those of us who are old enough to remember the 1990s, we remember the price of computing coming down, right? Similar to this. In computing, there's something called Moore's law, and Moore's law says that the productivity of the silicon chip doubles every 18 months, and that has been going on since he formulated that in the 1970s, and seemingly it still works. So computing is on this curve upward, but of course, no tree grows into heaven, so at one point it's going to stop. But then there are two kinds of economists, right? Those who say, like Adam Smith, who was writing here, oh, look what free trade can do. And the rest of us would say, look what technology can do. Because, of course, if you are like England, the only country in the world with this kind of productivity explosion, you get filthy rich, right? So everyone at that time, all countries, Germany, Sweden, etc., that we have to get into this industry as well. We may not be as efficient as the English. Maybe we only get 20% a year in productivity increase, but we will still be better off than having only agriculture. So this has been the logic that comes again and again. Which skip that. So I think to explain where we are in I'm talking about this 1848 moment, right? You had a Canadian economist who described the cycle that I'm trying to describe today, that with the role Trump plays and Brexit and all this. So Harold Innis, Canadian, said, look at it like this. Science, which is communicated in Latin, gets more and more abstract and enters into alliances with the political elites. This is neoclassical economics and Western capitalism. Right? And the Latin is mathematics, or equilibrium mathematics. Torstein Webel called it vested interests, but that's another thing. And resistance to the ruling paradigm and the elites builds up among the vernacular. Vernacular was all the languages of Italy that were not Latin. Those who don't speak Latin and speak another language. Resistance to this paradigm builds, and an overthrow may take place after a shock to the system. This is why I'm so happy about Trump, although I hate the guy, but because he is producing that. He is producing the shock to the system, which makes it collapse, and so did Brexit. But it's incredible how this guy, he lived in the trenches during World War I. An extremely interesting character. He's known in Canada because he talked about fur trade and things like that, but he talks about important things here. And then he said, Western civilization is again and again saved by knowledge that for a time only survives in the periphery. Hyman Minsky was the guy who spent his career saying it can happen again, it being a financial crisis. If you believed in Hyman Minsky, the only two places you got a job was University of Missouri, Kansas City, and Bard College, upstate New York. So if you believed in this, you had to sacrifice your career to a third-rate university. And some people did. Jan Kregel, who I mentioned. So when the financial crisis came, suddenly everybody understood, well, this is Minsky. And the Minsky, everybody talks about the Minsky moment and this thing. So I find it incredible that this guy saw this so clearly. And the importance of that shows you the importance of keeping different theories alive. Right? Because if everybody thinks alike, at one point, everybody may be wrong at the same time, right? and it's not that people are always right. We just need the diversity. I think this is clear. Now this is what we lost, and this is countries like Brazil has a big diversity in economics, and Turkey has had. These are the two countries which, for some reason, unknown reason, have had a diversity of economists, which is very healthy. So there are really two types of economic theory. I think this is the best-selling economic book, history of economic thought of the 20th century in England. Types of economic theory. Right? This was before the World War II. People understood that there was that there were different types. Right? And interestingly enough, Wesley Clair Mitchell, who was the best-known American historian of economic thought, he also wrote 2 volumes with the same title, Types of Economic Theory. And this is important. There are types of approaches to medical science, and that's useful. Nietzsche tells us that objectivity is achieved by looking at an object from as many angles as possible. To have an objective view of this building, you would ask for the architect plans, you would ask for aerial photos, you would ask for photos from all 4 sides, right? Objectivity is seeing a thing from as many angles as possible. I think that's a very healthy principle. And the problem with economic theory is that it's been a monoculture. It's only looked at the world from one angle, right? And when an angle which didn't see deindustrialization was not important, financial crisis couldn't happen, and then you have this physics-based, classical mainstream, and you have the experience-based, Schumpeterian, evolutionary, institutional, what I call the other canon, the alternative canon, which is much older than the mainstream canon. So when I was teaching economics in the United States in the late 70s, this is very bad. But what it says here is that here's Aristotle and the Bible, here's Adam Smith, and here's David Ricardo. And here is Karl Marx, Lenin, China, USSR, and the New Left, coming out of Karl Marx. And here is John Stuart Mill, Valra, Marshall, Keynes, post-Keynesian mainstream economics. But the interesting thing here is that both come from David Ricardo. So Ricardo was the father of both Marxism and Western economics. And he was the one who didn't distinguish the real economy from the financial economy. He was the one who used only bartering labor, right? So Ricardo, in a sense, is the root of all evil, both left and right, which many people saw. So I thought, when I was teaching this in the late 70s, that, well, the right-left axis from one angle is just a civil war between Ricardians to the right and Ricardians to the left. It was very confusing. So I started looking for people. Well, there must have been someone who didn't believe, didn't agree with Ricardo, and I found them. And I built my own family. I built my own family tree, which will come up afterwards. So back to this dichotomy. Note 1994, which was the peak of triumphalism after the fall of the Berlin Wall. One of the nice things about economics is that it's only a way of thinking. Factual knowledge does not exist. Very important. Don't disturb us with facts. Right? Don't confuse us with facts. And that's so when the facts like deindustrialization, financial crisis comes up, people are not prepared. Right? They're just not prepared. And then you have the German philosopher Gadamer. The root of everything we can call theory is to observe things as they are. So I think you have to make up your mind here. You know, either you're that kind of economist and that kind of, or that kind of economist. You know, and I think more economics understanding this now and slowly moving in the direction of putting facts in, but they're putting it in an ideological framework which is not constructive.